Welcome everyone to the CPS Coordinators Forum, April 14th, 2021. We're so glad you're here. Thank you for joining us. Please remember to put your name and where you're from in the chat box. We'd love to hear from you. And please remember, if you have suggestions for topics you'd like to cover, we'd like to know what those thoughts are, and we'd be happy to share the projects you're doing as well. So please reach out to us and let us know what you have on your plate. So we have a very full agenda today. We're going to be hearing from the NHTSA Office of Defects and Investigation. Then we'll hear from the US DOT Volpe National Transportation Systems Center. And then our very own Jennifer Pelky from the National Child Passenger Safety Board on an exciting program that they're doing over at Toyota. So let's go ahead and get started with our first set of speakers. Dr. Beth Wolfe joined the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration in 2017 and has been a safety defect analyst in the Office of Defects Investigation within the Trends Analysis Division since 2019. Dr. Wolfe oversees the early warning reporting compliance for several motor vehicle and equipment manufacturers, including all child restraint manufacturers. Dr. Wolfe is a certified child passenger safety technician and has a passion for public health and injury prevention. Dr. Samuel Wilson joined the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, in March of 2017, serving as a safety defect specialist in the Office of Defects Investigation under VDD-B Group. Dr. Wilson oversees several areas of investigation for Chrysler, Nissan, and child seats. Prior to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Dr. Wilson worked for the Department of Defense and served in the United States Marine Corps. Welcome.
Thank you. I am going to share my screen. Are we all set? All right. So is Samuel on the line?
I'm here, Beth.
Okay, great. Perfect. So we will get started. My name is Beth, and Samuel is also going to co-present with us here today. We're going to give you a brief overview of the side of the house that NHTSA has for child restraints and car seats that most people typically don't see. Most of you may be very familiar with Laura Dunn and the programs office, but Samuel and I are going to be here today to give you a little bit of history of the Office of Defects Investigation, or ODI, and then we're going to tell you how we get some data about car seats and basically what we do with it to help the public. To start us off, here's a very brief organizational chart of NHTSA. We're actually quite large. There are several different areas that we have child seats in our entire agency, some with communication. So you see all of our Twitter, Facebook, traffic safety marketing materials. Our communications group does that. And then we have our research and development side of the house and the regional operations and program delivery side. That's where Laura and a few others work. And then you have rulemaking, which does the federal motor vehicle safety standards. And then you also have the Office of Enforcement, and that's where Samuel and I are hosted. And Samuel's going to talk a little bit more about that.
Good afternoon. From the side of the Office of Enforcement, there are many components that comprise our group. There's the Administrator of Enforcement, of course, and our Office of Defects Investigation, ODI, which contains the recall, the defects, the reporting and compliance arena. From the Office of Vehicle Safety Compliance, OVSC, that's where FMVSS 213 and compliance testing takes place. And of course, we have the odometer fraud area as well. Next slide, please. Within ODI, the director is in charge of 9 different divisions. Division A, which consists of GM, Honda, Ferrari, and tires. Division B, Chrysler, Nissan, and equipment. Division C is Ford, Hyundai, and Kia. For Division D is Toyota, BMW, Mercedes, and Tesla. And for our heavy duty components, it consists of tractor trailers and motor homes. For our recall management, deals with vehicles and child seats, and the correspondence research area, along with trends and analysis, again, where Beth and I touch base with one another, deals with child seats and vehicles from A, B, C, D, and heavy duty, the program support. Next slide, please. Now we talk about child seats. As you can see, this particular child seat back in the 30s, in particular 1933, when the Bunny Bear Company manufactured the seat, which allows a child to be able to look out a window as he's in the passenger seat or the rear seat with a fancy looking steering wheel on it. We've come a long way since 1930. Next slide, please. In the late 50s, there's a company, as you can see, the little, it's like a brochure of some sort or pamphlet that describes the toy company who advertised the Riding High auto seat, which highlights infants' rides to be comfortable while in the vehicle. This particular seat was wedged with anchors to the front and the back seat of the vehicle. Again, with the anchor system back then in the 50s, it's definitely come a long way since then. Next slide, please. In the late 60s, in particular 1968, Ford came up with this unique looking space type seat, which they called it the Tot Guard, which was a heavy type molded type plastic that protects a child's face. Right there, we can see the little girl sitting there. The white in color piece was just a foam piece or a pillow type to help in event of a crash. Next slide, please. In the late 70s, as you can see, this particular seat, I guess it looks really archaic to a certain degree, but this is one where NHTSA came into play with some restraints for having an anchor system and a harness system for this particular seat. Next slide, please. In the 80s, this particular seat was more on the lines of an Astro 6 seat, manufactured by the International Manufacturing Company, which is more of a padded type seat for the child, and it's held in place by the seat belt system. Next slide, please. As we get closer, we have the 1990s, where we got a chance to see the anchor and latches and the top tether to anchor points for stability for this particular seat, which is one that looks to be very rough and hard to ride on. It looks like a cloth over it with a heavy molded type of plastic. Next slide, please. Then we approach 2000, and we see a little more modern seats where we've got the rear facing, the convertible, the 3-in-1, the backless, of course, in the high booster seat, which we're commonly known and what we're familiar with in today. Next slide, please. Then we're up to 2020, of course, and where we have Cadillacs of seats where they display more so the weight of a child, if it's rear facing, forward facing, if it's backless. I guess you could separate the seats in the categories of the cost of them, where you would deem it as a small little, potentially a little Kia type vehicle, as opposed to a Lexus or a Toyota type seat as far as cost. But they all have the same components, whether they're rear facing, forward facing, high backs, backless, and they definitely have the weight of the child. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Samuel. So now we're going to get into a little bit of what my division, the Trends Analysis Division, does. And then also Samuel's going to talk about, on the investigator side, what we all do with the information that we get about potential defects, safety issues with child seats. So my division, the Trends Analysis Division, this is our mission, we basically are a compliance division that came about in the early 2000s, and I'm going to scoot ahead here. So many of you may remember in the early 2000s, Bridgestone, Firestone, and then the Ford Explorers were having an issue where they were having some tire blowouts. And the issues that came about from that safety issue created the TREAD Act. And that's where my division actually was born. The early warning reporting is a part of the TREAD Act, where basically under 49 CFR, the regulation, 579.25 is what particularly applies to child restraints. And if you are a child restraint manufacturer and you're bringing in one car seat into the United States, you are obligated to report to my division on a routine basis. Some of the items that we'll go over here in a second have to be reported weekly. Some of them are quarterly, some of them are annually. And we use this information in my division to identify potential emerging trends in safety issues. And if a manufacturer does not comply with the reporting obligations, we do have the capacity to levy fines, civil penalties, and other litigation through our Office of Chief Counsel. Here's a very brief chart of what manufacturers are obligated to report. Specifically for child restraints, they have to give us all of the data on here except for property damage claims. But you'll notice that fatalities, death and injuries are known as D&I. Those are reported to my division on a quarterly basis. We also get manufacturer communications, foreign recalls, and warranty complaints and consumer complaints. And we also get what's called field reports. So if something's going on in with a specific child seat and the manufacturer receives that car seat back or does an evaluation or assessment of it, that is a field report. And I read over those field reports on a quarterly basis. And depending on maybe any trends or any urgent issues that arise, that's where Samuel and I kind of tag team. And he's going to talk about here in a second what he does from the public end, getting reports from consumers.
On the side of vehicle safety compliance, it falls under the Office of Enforcements, which is governed by the FMVSS 213 and compliance. For compliant type child restraints, they have basically labels on the seats that they indicate and meet federal standards. They come with a user guide, and they have a manufacturer's name, address, serial number, make and model on each seat. When there's a complaint filed, these are things that we normally ask for from the consumer. If it's not given to us during the report when it's filed, we normally reach out to the consumer in order to gather this information to determine our position and what needs to take place at that time. When filing the complaint, we normally have our consumers go to NHTSA.gov and fill out a vehicle questionnaire, which is commonly known to us as a VOQ. Or they can call the hotline at 1-888-327-4236 between the hours of 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. Next slide, Beth. Oh, in addition to that, where it's compliant for the seats, there are also fake car seats that have been reported to us as well, and Beth will expand upon that later on. Next slide, please. This particular site at NHTSA.gov is a site that basically is set up when filing a VOQ for those who want to use their computer to do so. When you click on the right-hand side, you will see a non-vehicle. Once non-vehicle is prompted, on the right-hand side, you will then come across areas of make, model, type, date of manufacturer, component, and component parts. Next slide. The next slide will show us that this particular area in question will allow you to fill in all of your, all the information about the seat. If you should not know the name of the seat, we ask that you put other there. And that's where we, or myself rather, would reach out to the consumer to get the additional information needed to conduct our investigation on our side of the fence. Each of our VOQs that come into our office are examined, and I reach out to those individuals by either email or phone call to get additional information so I can collect it as well, and also reaching out to the manufacturers themselves if we're unable to resolve the issue. Next slide, please.
One urgent and emerging issue that we have been dealing with over the past few years have been counterfeit car restraints and vehicle parts, you name it. Now that you can buy pretty much anything online, we know that there is a prevalence of car seats that look like a certain brand, feel like a certain brand, but it may not be what that brand is. And so unfortunately, NHTSA, we do not have the enforcement authority to go after potential identity theft, or sorry, not identity theft, property theft, infringement, or alleged fake and counterfeit products. However, we are capable of collecting that information and passing it on to our federal partners that do have the jurisdiction to look into these issues. So our Office of Vehicle Safety Compliance works with Customs and Border Protection. They are the ones that deal with imports that come into the United States and work with the ports of entry and identifying potential car parts and car seats that may not meet federal safety standards. And then also my division monitors potential reporting violations for car seat manufacturers that are selling in the United States that may not be in compliance with their reporting obligations and other things to that nature. But we have partnered with the Department of Commerce in the International Trade Administration. They are the ones in the United States federal government that does look into intellectual property theft and infringement issues, which fake and counterfeit products falls under. So I'm going to show you on the next slide. If you go to stopfakes.gov, they are currently working on enhancing their reporting structure. But if you go to their contact us button and then hit the email us, you can write them an email. You can tell them, you know, I am concerned that a car seat or a product of a vehicle or whatever it may be counterfeit or fake. And someone at the Department of Commerce will reach back out to you and be in touch with you. However, if you also want to report that to us at NHTSA, you can do that on the VOQ page that Samuel just showed you. There's actually a drop-down menu on that VOQ page that says, I suspect that this product is counterfeit. So what we do on our end is collect all that information and try to gather as much information from the consumer or you as possible. And then we work with our federal partners to maybe refer that over or pass it along so that they can potentially look into it further. But unfortunately at NHTSA, that is not in our enforcement capacity. We're going to go over just 3 quick scenarios. I'm going to do 2, and then Samuel's going to do the last one. So what if I came across a suspected non-FMVSS 213 compliant child receipt? First of all, please report it to us. Go to NHTSA.gov, fill out the VOQ complaint form with what we described before. Please don't use the seat if you do not think it is safe. Please maybe reach out to someone in your community to see if there might be an alternative seat to use. But if you do not believe it is safe or it's not compliant, we just please don't use it. Please tell us about it. And then hopefully we can maybe work with you to highlight some options on how to get a replacement seat. Scenario number 2, you came across a child restraint that may be fake or counterfeit. What do you do? The best thing that we can encourage you to do is gather as much information as possible. Online receipts, emails, packing slips, any types of picture of the child restraint itself, including the labels, if there are any particular markings, basically anything and everything that could be helpful in us maybe tracking down where the product may have come from. You know, did they use maybe a third-party vendor to exchange money? Was it like a PayPal, or was it some other source of money exchanging platform? Also, call the manufacturer. If you believe that this seat looks and smells like a specific brand, call them up, verify the serial number, verify the date of manufacturer. If it didn't come with a recalls card, then that's a huge red flag. Call the manufacturer to see if by any chance they forgot it, or this may be a red flag that this may not be a legitimate car seat. We would ask for you to, once you have all that information, please file 2 different complaints. You can file a complaint with us at NHTSA using our VOQ form, but then you can also file a complaint with Stop Fakes. So you have 2 avenues at your disposal, and the great thing is if you file a complaint with NHTSA, it's still going to get referred to Stop Fakes, but we may try to work with you to gather more information so that we can kind of hand it over to them in one big package.
And scenario number 3, you come across a child restraint that is broken, damaged, or potentially defective. What do? You call the manufacturer and ask yourself the question beforehand, does it fall under the warranty? Will the manufacturer receive the seat back, quality, warranty, and inspect it? Will the manufacturer send out an owner a replacement for the seat? Second, gather the documentation in the form of receipts, emails, packing slips, pictures, restraints, labels, etc. Check with a technician, a child seat technician, and ask them to look at it as well. And the last one will be file a complaint with NHTSA before sending the seat back to the manufacturer. There are many times that we get the seat, we reach out to the consumer, we get the information, and we ask them to take photos of the seat so they can send it to us, and we can make those conversations between us and the manufacturer to see if some things can be resolved without having to say they've just given up and no one is listening to us. We do our best, Beth and I, to gather as much information from both sides of the fence, from what she receives from the manufacturers and what defects I receive. We work extremely hard at trying to bring everything together and make the safety of the child seat arena one that is very particular. You can replace a vehicle, but you sure cannot replace the life of a child. Thank you for your time. Beth and I do appreciate it. Any questions?
I want to say thank you so much. This is wonderful information, and I really appreciate the walkthrough on how to report. That was really helpful and very clearly marked on your slides. Laura Dunn is with us, and I think she might have a little bit of information to add. Laura, did you have a little something as well?
Just as a little side note, our Office of Chief Counsel does work with some of the larger online sellers, including Amazon, eBay, Alibaba, in order to help them set standards for products that they are selling on their seats, to kind of reduce some of that large influx that we see of those clearly counterfeit and just non-functional, non-seats. So that work is happening. And while Beth said, we don't have as much regulatory authority in this area as we would like, we are working with them to help ensure that there are, safer choices for people online. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out.
Well, thank you. Well, Dr. Wolfe and Dr. Wilson, this was such time information. It was so clear and so helpful. If any of you have questions, if you'll please go ahead and put them in the chat box. I think we'll address those at the end of all of our speakers. But again, thank you very, very much for your presentation today. Next slide, Amy. So I'd like to welcome our next speakers, Angie Byrne, Eric Englin, and Alexander Epstein. They are with the USDOT Volpe National Transportation Systems Center. Angie Byrne is a program analysis with the Volpe National Transportation Systems Center and the Safety Measure and Analysis Division. In this role, she has been primarily working on Federal Motor Carrier Association projects that support grant-related initiatives and work with state programs. Other work at Volpe includes projects associated with law enforcement community, safe systems, Vision Zero, and behavioral safety initiatives. Outside of Volpe, Angie serves as the vice chair of the Students Against Destructive Decisions, SAD, Board of Directors, and a health and wellness organization for teens with a strong focus on transportation safety. She is also on the Vision Zero committee in her community of Somerville, Massachusetts. Prior to joining Volpe, Angie was a regional program manager for the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration Region 1 office in Cambridge, Massachusetts for over 9 years. In this role, she worked with the New England state with their programming and grant funding for traffic safety initiatives. Her areas of traffic safety include impaired driving, youth public health injury prevention, safe communities, emergency medical services, motorcycle and bicycle and pedestrian safety. She earned a bachelor's degree in political science and a master's in public health from The Ohio State University. She holds a master's certified health education specialist and a certified public health designations. Eric Englin is an operations research analysis in the Transportation Planning Division at the Volpe Center. At Volpe, Eric supports a wide variety of planning and policy projects with sponsors from the Federal Highways, National Park Service, and Millennial Change Corporation. He has a master's in public policy from Harvard Kennedy School of Government and a BS in biology from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Dr. Alexander Epstein joined the U.S. Department of Transportation Volpe National Transportation Systems Center in 2011, where he leads a portfolio of vehicle safety innovation research and implementation initiatives with major municipal fleets, develops partnerships with industry to demonstrate safety technology, and performs vehicle safety and emissions reductions research in support of FMCSA, NHTSA, and other DOT operations administrations. Connecting deployment at the local level with best practices at the federal level, Dr. Epstein also advises a number of Vision Zero initiatives across the US to reduce the rising number of vulnerable road user fatalities and injuries. He is a general engineer, has a PhD in engineering sciences from Harvard, and a BS in engineering from Franklin W. Olin College of Engineering. Welcome you all. Thank you so much for being part of our forum today, and we are very grateful. I will turn it over now. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mandi, so much for that introduction. Next slide, please. So, you heard Mandi talking about the Volpe Center, and a lot of people don't know who we are. We're actually part of the U.S. Department of Transportation, and Secretary Chow once referred to us as the nerd bank of US DOT, and I think that's a pretty accurate assessment. While the vast majority of us are federal professionals, we're also supported by a large team of contractors, and we sort of operate like a think tank for the US DOT. We're multimodal, as you heard from our introductions. We have a lot of cross-disciplinary experience, and we operate on a fee-for-service model, which is, again, very different than most typical federal government agencies. Next slide, please. And so today we're going to talk to you about direct vision. So what exactly is direct vision and why is it important? Could you click, please? And one more. So in the slide here, we have there's a lot of ways. You can see out the front window. That's direct vision, but there's also other opportunities to see as well, be it through cameras and other technologies, mirror systems. Next click. And then also, but what we're really focusing on as part of this app we're going to share with you today is that direct vision, being able to see with the naked eye vulnerable road users and other obstructions in the roadway. So why is this important? Next slide. When you can see something with your eyes and not through a camera, not through mirrors, your reaction time is 50% faster. Like, I had to admit, the first time I heard that statistic, I was like, wow, 50% faster reaction time? That's crazy, especially when milliseconds can mean the difference between life and death with a vulnerable road user. Next slide. And so a little reasoning, in addition to the quick, faster reaction time, there's some other reasons why direct vision is important, and particularly in regards to vulnerable road users and truck crashes. I have some data up here on the screen, but there's a NTSB and among others have identified addressing blind zones as a contributing factor for vulnerable road user and truck crashes. So next slide, please. So what kind of goes into determining direct vision? Well, the first thing is obviously, how is your vehicle built? How high is the dash? How long is the hood? Is there a slope? Is there hood stacks if it's a truck? And then it just sort of your vision gets narrowed a little bit when you start doing things to your vehicle. So, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I live in New England, and plows are a big thing we see on our vehicles, particularly throughout our heavy winters. But other things can go into diminishing on the body of a vehicle, be it like a car carrier, vacuum hoses, buckets, ladder. And then there's aftermarket obstructions that even further diminish the amount of direct vision. And those can be sun visors, bug deflectors, your GPS, fuzzy dice, whatever the things may be. Next slide, please. So in order to address this, Volpe started working actually with the Olin College of Engineering to kick off developing an app to actually measure direct vision. And I put the link to it up in the chat. And so we started that off, but kicked that off kind of back in like 2017. And we currently have funding with the Santos Family Foundation to continue our work. And we've had a lot of exciting things that we have going on currently, starting in this current federal fiscal year, that I'm excited to share some of the stuff we have going on today. Next slide, please. And another click. And one more. Awesome. And so while primarily you'll see a lot of terminology, I've been using a lot of truck terminology, and that's what we've largely been focused on with the app, but quite frankly, it works for any type of vehicle. So while we kind of started off working with heavy duty trucks, it applies to light duty vehicles as well. I love sharing this photo because this just shows how much vision is impaired. But there's 12 or 13 kids sitting in front of this SUV before the driver can actually see them. And because front over crashes is becoming just such a prevalent issue, we're trying to draw a little bit of awareness to what we have going on here. So next slide. So kind of doing some comparison about blind zones in vehicles. We have two pictures up here. One is a truck with, pretty decent visibility, 71%. You can see out the front. But that being said, there's some things in the way. You got a laptop hanging there. You got the CD hanging down, and then the window off to the side is kind of small. And then the second picture we got got a big hood out front. We got a plow on there. Obviously the windows is a lot smaller. So there's a lot that goes into measuring the blind zone. Next slide, please. So what we created with our free, that's the operative word here, free smartphone-based blind zone measurement tool, we kind of are focusing on, three chunks and why this is valuable for people. First of all is vehicle buyers, just anyone who's looking to buy a vehicle and is concerned about the vision and how well they can see at it. It helps them select the best in class direct vision makes and models. Second group we're kind of focusing on is like the fleet managers and the safety inspectors, like people who are buying large fleets of vehicles. They can consider direct vision as part of those purchases. And finally, drivers themselves. What's really cool about our tool is it's responsive to anybody. For example, I'm pretty tall, so I sit a little higher up in a vehicle, and that improves my direct vision. But if you're a little shorter, you're going to sit a lower, and that impacts your direct vision as well. So as well as how you sit, calling some awareness to if you're like someone who really leans forward, that could impact your vision. So, you know, drawing attention to how your body posture in the vehicle, you know, can improve your direct vision. Next slide, please. So I'm talking up this app. I'm actually going to turn it over to my colleague, Eric. And so if we could switch things over to him, Amy, so he can do a demo of the app. I look forward to being able to actually show you guys that.
Okay, I think I am sharing my screen, but can you let me know if
We can see it, Eric.
you can see it?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So this is the actual app that we've developed. So this was first developed in 2017 from the Olin College, and we've been building on it since then. It's a pretty lean app. There are just 3 tabs here. This is the home page of the actual app. And this really has a lot of the same information that Angie covered in her presentation. Just going all the way down, describing the need for this, what is direct vision, and how can you actually take the pictures that will go into this app so you can get a visibility score. So just to get a little sense of what this looks like, for us, we work with this 5-foot pole. It has a base here and it's got some pink duct tape at every single foot. And we use it to be able to calibrate our measurements. However, some people have used a light pole, you know, and just put a little duct tape at the 1-foot measures. It all works the same way. All you need to do is go into your driver's seat and take a panoramic picture, and then you can use the app to calculate visibility. So this is the home page, and just right here, this is the add vehicle page of the app. And this is where, when you have your panoramic photo, I've got a little folder here that has about 5 to 10 that we've taken. And this is a Ford Transit that we took a picture of. And so when you upload the photo, it will load onto the page. And this is a regular Ford Transit work truck that we took a picture in. And there are 11 steps to get the visibility score here. So on the first step, it says, find the pole and go and mark where the 1-foot marker is on that pole. And so as we've put the pole in good view, you can actually just click right onto the image and it'll draw a little line there. So that's where the 1-foot line is for the pole. Step 2, where's the 2-foot line? It's that pink duct tape right there. 3, go find that one. And so on. And once you've entered your 5 feet on the pole, then you get into, okay, draw a vertical line at 0 degrees. This is directly in front of the driver where the measuring stick should have been placed. So for us, it's about right there. I think the measuring stick was a little bit to the right of it, so I'm going off the steering wheel. Then step 7 is draw a vertical line at 90 degrees. This is directly to the right of the driver out of the passenger window. And so that, you know, when you're in a car, generally is back here, right behind. Sometimes we also mark this with a piece of tape in the car too. Step 8 is draw a line along the bottom of the front field of view. So this is saying for this windshield, draw a line where you can actually see outside the window beyond the hood. So in this case, there isn't much of a hood in front. So it's going to be generally where this orange line is. So I'll see if I can just closely follow that all the way across. And they have some things covering over here. So in the corner, it gets a little dicey what the exact line of sight is, but I think it goes a bit over these gloves and then all the way to this A-pillar over there. So this is the step 8, draw a line along the bottom of the front field of view. And then the last drawing step, draw a line along the bottom of the passenger field of view. So for this one, I generally start right where the mirror starts to block. And in this case, you go down and then you come back up again. And really starting at one side and going all the way to the other. And so once you've done the drawings on the image, there are 4 measurements that you should have been taken, you would have been prompted to measure while you were taking the picture out in the field. So these are shown in the diagram here, A, B, C, and D. I wrote these down. So it was 68 inches is where the driver's eye height is above the ground. Obviously, this is one of those that will differ a lot depending on how tall or how not tall the driver is. Driver's distance from the driver's eye to the passenger window in inches. So this one was 50. The radial distance from the driver to the measuring stick. This one is a little bit further, 222. And then the distance from the driver's eye to the front bumper of the vehicle. This was 8. And so when you get to this step, it calculates the actual percent volume visible score. So for us, we got 68%. And then it's also differentiated by the front and the passenger. So you're able to see 83% of the volume in front of your vehicle and 81% to the passenger side of the vehicle. And there is a pillar in your right front blind zone where you're not able to see anything. So that brings you to a 68% total. And so then just to help for our database, we add in the make and model so that we can start collecting this information and categorizing it in a way that makes sense. So this is a Ford Transit 2017, and it is a class 2 weight class. And sometimes we like to add in just little comments in case there's any notes on this. So I'll just write in that this was a. And then once you hit the next tier, this gets added into the actual database. And so we can see it right here, the Ford Transit 2017 right at the top and entered at 243. So that's how the app works. And then when you get to the end, you can compare how that looks with all the other vehicles in the database. So you can see that that's a pretty good score, but it's definitely lower than some of the smaller vehicles that we've also looked at, like a Ford Focus, for example. And that's to be expected. So this is the last page of the app, the vehicle database, and we went through the add vehicle and the home page as well. So that is all that we have on the app. So we can take questions at the end, but I think I'll turn it back over.
Great, thank you so much.
Share.
Could we get, I assume you're, oh, thank you, Amy. Awesome, next slide. And next slide. So what we kind of have going on, so we have this blind zone calculator, and Eric gave you those scores. He gave you a 68% visibility. So like, what does 68% mean? Well, we're working on that right now. So what the approach we're doing is we're taking actual vehicles, like, Eric used the example of a Ford Transit, and then we're taking vehicle CAD models. Next click, please. And we have these going on at the same time. So we have people we're hoping will use the app and add to our vehicle database, wink, wink, wink. And then we're also doing some simulator studies at the exact same time. Next click, please. And so, we're actually using, actual vehicles to compare against what we're doing in the simulator to do some validations. One more click. And so our goal with this is, like I was saying, to try to relate visibility score to crash risk related to vulnerable road users. So we're comparing what's in our database to, you know, what's in the simulator, and hopefully we'll start to be able to develop what those scores actually mean and identify what is good and what is not as good. Next slide, please. And so, you know, people like you guys and our external partners are really valuable for this, because, you know, we need actual vehicles in our database. You know, so that's a key point where we're, you know, where we're talking to you guys today. Next slide, please. And so a little bit more about, you know, what we're doing in our simulator. We're comparing high vision, high direct vision cabs against low direct vision cabs in the simulator, and block those blind zones, like Eric was saying, with the different pillars, the mirrors, things like that. And we're comparing the high and low cab performance in vulnerable road user crash scenarios. Next slide. So some of the other stuff we hope to build into the app, as you kind of saw, it's working, it's functioning, it's awesome, but, you know, we're a little limited. Our database isn't, you know, super built up. So, but that being said, we hope to be able to have that database developed to use as a comparison tool for different makes and models, so people can, you know, make vehicle purchase determinations based on direct vision. We want to kind of get into measuring the impact of aftermarket obstruction. So, you know, in that example Eric used, he talked about the gloves that were in the way. There was also a sticker there impacting the view. And then also specialize in showing consumers how visibility is measured, and, you know, why it's important with, you know, driver posture height, vehicle choices, aftermarket obstructions. And we do understand that the app, you know, it necessitates a poll, and it necessitates some measuring tape. So we want to make it a little easier to use to you in the future. So that's stuff we're definitely working on. Next slide, please. And so one of the things that I'm excited to share with, you know, an audience that's engaged in child passenger safety issues is some of the stuff that we're working on, you know, to kind of draw attention and, you know, emphasize to people why exactly this direct vision thing is so important. So we have two vehicles up here. We have a Kenworth T800, which is a low visibility score, 34%. And that's, you know, you can see on this, there's not even a whole lot added to this vehicle. This is just the base, you know, low visibility score. And then we have the Ford Transit that Eric demoed, which is a little better. It runs around 68%. So if you're thinking about this in terms of impact, with the Kenworth, 13 preschool age children fit in the blind zone before the driver can see them, whereas a vehicle like the Ford Transit, only 5 do, which isn't great, but it's definitely a lot better in kind of similar makes and models. Next slide, please. And so we, you know, have some light duty SUVs, huge popularity right now. So we have a lower visibility Chevy Suburban with a visibility score of 70%, compared to a Mazda CX-5, which is 78%, a little higher. So with, I mean, we're only talking about 8% difference here. Okay, again, what does this 8% mean? And so in the forward blind zone for Suburban, 5 preschool age children can fit in that blind zone, whereas compared to the Mazda, you have about 1 that'll fit in there, a little less than 1. Okay, next slide, please. And so, you know, as I mentioned today, like, we would love for you to use our app, take it on a test drive, experiment with us, provide us feedback that, you know, give you a weekend project to do. And it could be fun to use with your kids too, if you have kids. And in doing so, like, building that database is really important, so we can start to, you know, make some more of those connections between, you know, what this direct vision score means and crash risk. That's what we're hoping to do. And then supporting collaboration and growth. Share this. Like, we would love for you to share it. You know, anytime you want us to speak on this, we'd be happy to. And then, you know, as I mentioned, we have some seed money available with the Santos Family Foundation, but, you know, we're always looking for a little more. So anyone who is interested in what our app can do and expanding its capabilities, we would love to talk to you as well. And if anyone has any questions, next slide, we'd be happy to answer them. And here is our contact information if you're interested in having us speak.
Thank you so much. My goodness, this is fascinating information. And I love the visuals. You showed one towards the beginning of the presentation, and it had an SUV, and it looks like a dozen kiddos lined up in front of it. And I had just never dreamed that was possible for the blind spot to be that far out. So I think this is really relevant to all of us doing CPS work and talking to parents about in and around vehicles and all of those additional messages that we try to pass along. So thank you for doing this really fascinating work. Denise Donaldson did have one quick question for you. She said, do you want to include information collected from school buses?
Yes. So we would definitely, you know, we've heard a lot from the child passenger safety community and the school bus community. We've also been like trying to make some connections with disability advocates, because obviously, I mean, direct vision impacts everybody. And so like you were saying, Mandi, like it's shocking once you actually start kind of seeing these visuals and making the connection. So yes, we're willing to talk to anyone and anybody who's interested.
Well, thank you so much. I think we are going to have a few people reach out to you, because this also rolls over into our occupant protection and some of our older driver work. So I'll be in touch for sure. But thank you again, all of you, for this wonderful presentation. We're going to move ahead so we can have just a quick minute to listen to Jennifer Pelky from Toyota. I'm super excited about this project as well. It's been a great day of innovation. Jennifer Pelky is a principal engineer in the Vehicle Performance Development and Interior Safety at Toyota Motor North America Research and Development. In her role, she specializes in seat safety and is the R&D subject matter expert for child passenger safety. She is also the interior safety team lead on the 2021 Sienna vehicles. Pelky has been heavily involved in child passenger safety for much of her career. In addition to her position at Toyota, Pelky is also the vice chair-elect of the National Child Passenger Safety Board and is a certified child passenger safety technician. She is also a member of the Safe Kids Children in Autonomous Vehicles Consortium and of the SAE Children's Restraint Standards Committee. Pelky graduated from the University of Michigan with a degree in mechanical engineering. She is the mother of 2 sons, ages 7 and 10. She went to the University of Pennsylvania. Oh, and it looks like her sons have aged, 12 and 4. So Jennifer, you're gonna have to tell us how old your kiddos are.
Yeah, I haven't been to Pennsylvania, so I think maybe there is a extra line there from something else.
Yeah, maybe there's
so
a little
sorry about that.
I apologize.
Yeah, or mine, might have been mine. So, all right. Looks like we got about 7 minutes left, so I'll give you guys the Cliff's Notes version of something that I've been working on for about the past 2 years, but I'm super excited to share it with you. It's called Toyota for Families. So next slide, please. So as everyone here knows, we've come a long way from the days of kids sleeping on the package tray or sitting on a stack of telephone books, but you know, we still look at the statistics and we know that up to 3 out of 4 car seats are installed correctly. Next slide, please. So here at Toyota, we've developed a new program called Toyota for Families, which we're describing as interactive tools to help families ride safely. Next slide, please. So what do we mean by interactive tools? So it's a new set of features that are available in 2 different locations. First is in the Toyota Owners app. So to access the information in the Owners app, you'll need to have a VIN for a vehicle. So this is designed for somebody who really already owns the vehicle and is using the app already. And once you have a vehicle that has Toyota for Families available, you'll see a tile on your dashboard come up like this one, which is my cute 2 little buddies, although that's been replaced now, but you can look at how cute they were a couple years ago. And you can also access this online. The website is here below the image. And there's a couple actual ways you can get to this. So this is the direct link, but it's also currently available from the bottom of the actual just toyota.com page, as well as from the Toyota Owners website. Next slide, please. And so if you're accessing it from the app, it would look like this. You have your vehicle. You can use that tile on the previous page or in glove box. Go to Toyota for Families, and then it will bring you up to the main page where you can learn. One of the big things we can do is learn about car seats for vehicles. Next slide, please. So what does the app actually look like? Well, if you want to use it to find out about installing child seats, you would select your model of vehicle. You would select which seating position in the vehicle you want to install the car seat, the general type and direction of car seat, so forward facing, rear facing, or booster, the attachment method, so latch or seatbelt. And then once you input all of those things, if there's no known incompatibilities with what you've selected, then you'll be taken to a page where you get a video and also a set of written instructions that will show you how to install that generic type of car seat in that seating location. Next slide, please. So the goal of Toyota for Families is to take that 1 out of 4 statistic and take it to 4 out of 4 seats installed correctly. But what I'd like to do now, I'm going to take over the screen share and take you a quick run through of what it actually looks like on the website. All right. Maybe. All right, it says I'm sharing. Can you actually see it?
Yep, we can see it.
Perfect. All right, so from the actual Toyota.com, you would scroll to the bottom and you have the Toyota for Families tile, or from the owner's page, if you're already on 2021 Sienna, under resources, you'll see Toyota for Families. And once you go to the main page, this is what it looks like. And so there's kind of 4 main things you can do here. The big one that we've talked about is learning about installing car seats. You can also check on safety recalls for your vehicle. You can get additional safety tips. Right now, this links out to our friends at Buckle Up for Life. And then find more information about different vehicle features. So right now, this is kind of a single overview of Sienna, but in the future, we hope to add additional information like how to use the door sensor, how do you use things like Easy Speak, what do your different indicators mean? All that kind of safety information that you may not know will live under this area. But right now, let's talk about installing car seats. So if you aren't sure which child seat is appropriate for your child, we have the latest recommendations from the AAP that you can click through. If you want to start installing your car seat, you can pick between your model, 7 or 8 passenger. You can pick 2nd row or 3rd row where you want to install it. And let's say we want to do a forward-facing seat. If you want some more information again, we've got a reference guide here. How do you want to install it? Lower anchors or seatbelt? Then which type of tether do you have, straight or V? And if you have an incompatibility, such as I just chose, so we don't want you to install a V-shaped tether in this narrow center seat. So it'll prompt you to choose a different seating location. So you can say, you know what, let's just bring this up to the 2nd row. We'll update that, keep our V-shaped tether. And so now we have our video instructions and all of our written instructions. And then if you decide you want to change anything, you can go back and go to these drop downs and amend your choices. And that is the 1 minute to spare version of Toyota for Families. So thanks very much. I'm glad I got to share this with you guys today.
Jennifer, I'm sorry it's condensed, but wow, this is really, really exciting. And it seems so easy to use. And I know that's probably hugely based on you being a child passenger safety technician and really combining the engineering side with the practical side. But wow, this is really exciting.
Well, thanks. And really what we tried to do is, we can't install or tell you how to do every detail of every specific brand and model car seat out there, right? That's just too many permutations. But what we can do is, what are the big hitters, right? We know car seat not being installed tightly enough. Well, we can handle that here. We explain how to check for 1 inch of movement. Forward-facing car seats not using the tether. We know that's the case in half of the installation. So we automatically instruct you. It's not an option. We just show you how to install the tether. So trying to get those big, heavy hitters that are out there and at least, take a big chunk out of that low-hanging fruit.
Well, wow, you guys have really, really set the standard. So thank you so much for sharing. We are right at the top of the hour. So if our speakers might hang around for another couple of minutes, if anyone has some questions, we would sure like to address those. But Thank you to all of our speakers today. Really, really wonderful innovation happening, and we're so excited that we can share this with you. So please join us at our next CPS Coordinators Forum on May 26th, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. But thank you again, everyone. Amy, if you can end the recording, but we will hang out for a few minutes for some additional questions. Thank you.